listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me, non-judgmental talk about infidelity with Dr. Marie Murphy. If you're looking for new perspectives on complicated relationship issues, you've come to the right place.
Days go by, they're crawling by.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Marie Murphy. I'm a relationship coach, and I help people who are engaging in anything they think counts as infidelity to deal with their feelings and clarify what they want and make decisions about what they're going to do. No shame, no blame, no judgments. If you are ready to begin the process of resolving your infidelity situation in a way that is truly right for you, I can help you do it. When you're ready to talk, you can schedule an introductory coaching session with me through my website, mariemurphyphd.com. I offer confidential, compassionate coaching via Zoom, which means we can work together no matter where you're located. If you've been stuck in confusion or inaction in regards to your infidelity situation for longer than you'd like, why wait any longer before you get some help making change? The rest of your life is waiting for you. So let's get to work and deal with your infidelity situation in a way that you feel great about. As I'm sure the title of today's episode makes clear, today I'm going to answer some more of the questions from listeners that I have received. A number of folks wrote and asked about sustaining a long-term affair and how best to approach that. One person said, I would rather see a whole podcast episode about this topic, but can being married and secretly keeping a mistress long-term work? What has to be true for that to work? Do cheaters always get found out? Before I started doing these Ask Me Anything episodes, I was actually working on some material for an episode or maybe multiple episodes about sustaining long-term affairs. And so to those of you who have asked about how to do that, I want you to know that I will be devoting some time to talking about that at length soon. But for today's purposes, the short answers are as follows. Yes, long-term affairs can and do happen. And if you want to make that work in your life, there's a good chance you can. What that specifically means for you is going to be somewhat specific to you, but I will talk about some general things at a later date. And yes, cheaters do sometimes get found out, but they don't always. While there always may be some risk of getting caught, that's a risk you may choose to assume, and it is a risk you can manage. And just because there's a risk of getting caught doesn't mean you will get caught. I hear some professionals say that if you cheat, you are bound to get caught. You will certainly get caught eventually, as if this is an irrefutable law of physics or something. And all I can say is that the empirical reality does not support that idea. The empirical reality does not support the statement that if you cheat, you are sure to be caught eventually. That's just not how the facts bear out. And so that's all I'm going to say about long-term affairs today, but I promise I will speak to this topic in greater depth and detail soon. And in the meantime, if you want to talk about the specifics of your long-term affair or your potentially long-term affair, schedule yourself an introductory coaching session with me. Together, we can attend to the specifics of your situation and address your unique questions and come up with a plan that meets your unique needs. Okay, let's move on to the next terrific question. What to do if you've decided in your mind that you don't want to cheat anymore, yet your body and emotions are not lining up to the decision of your mind and you still haven't stopped? Great question. The first thing I want to encourage you to do if you're in this situation is get really clear on why exactly you don't want to cheat anymore. Get as specific as you can about your reasons for not wanting to cheat. As this person notes, even when we decide that we don't want to cheat anymore, we may also still want to cheat, or at least we may want to keep on experiencing some of the aspects of cheating. So for example, you may have decided that you really don't want to be in a relationship with a particular person anymore, but you may still really, really, really want to have sex with them. And to stick with this example, if you want to end a relationship with a person you still really want to have sex with, you have to be willing to tolerate or allow your desire to have sex with that someone without acting on that desire by calling them or reaching out to them or having sex with them. If you want to stay away from them, you have to be willing to let your desires to engage with them, sexually or otherwise, be present within you without acting on these desires in the way that you may have in the past and in the ways you still may want to. And if you are insanely attracted to someone, you may not really want to just allow yourself to feel your desire to have sex with them without acting on that desire. That may not seem like a very appealing idea to you at all. And that is fair enough. Experiencing immense sexual desire for someone and being able to act on that desire by actually having sex with that person can be a really wonderful experience and a really great part of being alive in a human body. So, if you've decided that you don't want to have sex with someone anymore, even though you still feel desire for them, or you don't want to be involved with someone anymore, even though you still want to connect with them in various ways, you need to have really good reasons why you want to disengage. You need to have reasons why it's worth it for you to not act on your desires in the ways you might want to. Your reasons for wanting to do something or not do something are your rocket fuel. It can take a lot of motivation to do certain things in life or not do certain things in life. And our reasons for wanting to do or not do certain things create our motivation. If your reasons are strong and compelling to you, your motivation will be powerful. If your reasons aren't that strong or compelling to you, you may not have the motivation that you need to do the thing or to not do the thing. When you have a really good reason or set of reasons why you are going to choose not to do the thing that you partially want to do, it's easier to ride out the desire to do the thing without acting on it. So here's an example that has nothing to do with infidelity. If we want to lose weight, we may have to adjust our eating habits. We may have to adjust our physical activity. We may need to do both things. We may have to not do some things that we really want to do, and we may have to do things that we don't particularly want to do. We may really want to eat pizza every day, and we may really not want to go to the gym. But if our desire to lose weight is strong enough, we can be willing to feel our desire to eat pizza without acting on it. We can tolerate wanting the thing but not having it. Similarly, we might not want to get out of the house and exercise. We might really want to stay on the couch. But if we really want to feel healthy and strong and lose some weight, it might be worth it to us to do the thing we don't really feel like doing, namely exercise, and to not do the thing we really want to do, namely stay on the couch and not move, except to go to the refrigerator. Knowing what our reasons are for wanting to do something is helpful, but it doesn't necessarily lessen the intensity of the desire. Not right away, at least. So if you really want to have sex with someone, if you feel a lot of desire to do that, even if you are as sure as you can be that you want to end the relationship with this person that you feel all of that desire for, knowing that you just prefer in the long run to cut off this relationship isn't necessarily going to make all of that desire go away right away. But you can allow all of that desire to flow through you without acting on it. Try it and see. It's possible to want something and not go after it. It's possible to feel huge, powerful surges of desire flow through us, whether that's sexual desire or desire for anything else, and to just feel the desire happen. Many of us kind of believe that we have to act on our urges to do whatever we feel the urge to do, but we don't have to. And learning how to allow our urges without acting on them, or allow ourselves to feel desire without acting on it, is a great skill to cultivate. Not because acting on desire is fundamentally bad, not at all, but because sometimes we like the results we get from not acting on our desire better than the results we get from acting on our desires. And if we want to stop cheating, if we truly want to stop cheating, if that is our highest priority, then there's a lot to be gained by allowing ourselves to feel desire for someone without acting on it, by engaging with that someone, with our affair partner or whoever it is, or without engaging in whatever our cheating behaviors may have been, right? Okay. The next question I'm going to read is on the long and detailed side, but I've chosen to read it and respond to it because it speaks to challenges that are really common, or a challenge that is really common. And here's the question. I have been in a monogamous 20-year marriage to a man who loves and respects me and acts in a way that reflects his values and feelings for me. Our son, his stepson, was in an accident 10 years ago and is now a quadriplegic. My husband has done everything possible for our family and has never wavered in his commitment to us. We used to have a wonderful sex life, and that took a back seat to caring for our son, and he is no longer as sexual as I would like. We've worked hard in the last few years to make time for each other and get the passion back despite caregiving. About 6 months ago, a man that I knew 25 years ago contacted me. I was always attracted to him. He's funny, great looking, and smart. We started chatting, and soon our texts became sexual. I felt so sexy and alive. We met for a weekend getaway recently, and our chemistry was off the charts. We had sex nearly the entire weekend, and it was spectacular. I'm 60 and he's 65, and it's the best sex either of us have ever had. I don't want my marriage to end because I value the relationship I have, but I also want this new relationship as a sexual friendship. I'd like to see him every few months for a weekend. I don't think my husband would be open to that possibility. He left his first wife because she cheated. Is there a way to have an open conversation about this desire? My short answer to this question is yes, it is possible to have an open conversation with your husband about what you want. The slightly longer answer, and I think the more critical point here, is that it may take some courage to talk to him about what you want. And to that end, for the sake of bolstering your courage, it may be helpful to remember that although you may think you know for sure what your husband would or would not be open to, you really don't know for sure. You don't know what he thinks right now. You don't know for sure what he will say to your idea until you ask him about it. And moreover, even if you do ask him what he thinks about this idea of yours, and he isn't initially inclined to being open to you having a sexual friend who you spend some time with every now and then, he might be willing to consider this idea, and he might ultimately arrive at a different position. As life goes on, people may evolve. They may not evolve, but they also may evolve. And if you haven't checked in with your husband lately about your sex life, it's entirely possible that he's missing your wonderful sex life too, and he may have some ideas about how he'd like to see that change. And within that, who knows, maybe he too would like to have the option to have a sexual friend who he gets to see every now and then. Maybe he'd be more than inclined to let you have your little arrangement and to have a little arrangement of his own. I'm not suggesting that he's thinking that for sure by any means, but who knows? He might be. Any number of interesting things might be going on within the private realm of his mind. What I want you to consider is what you want and what you're prepared to do about what you want. If you want to stay married and have a sexual friendship with your new person, with your husband's knowledge, you can prepare to talk to your husband about this. And again, your husband might decide that he's totally cool with this idea. On the other hand, though, you might present this idea to your husband in a way that you feel really great about. And your husband might say, no, I'm not okay with this. And if you want us to stay married, I expect you to end your thing with this person immediately. That could be the outcome of having a more open conversation with your husband about what you desire. And so consider if that happens, then what will you want to do? End your marriage for the sake of having other options open? Stay married, but continue to see this other person in secret, even though your husband has made it clear that it isn't okay with him? I'm not suggesting that you try to predict all future developments and game the whole thing out, but I do encourage you to start thinking now about what your priorities are and get clear on what you are willing to pursue and what you are willing to compromise on. And then you can prepare to have an open conversation with your husband about what you want. You can think about the specifics of what you want to convey and what you want to ask for, and then you can see what he says. If you want to, that is. You don't have to have a conversation with him. You could just keep on doing what you're doing in secret. But you might want to have that conversation. And moreover, you might want to give him the benefit of the doubt and imagine that the two of you can have a really open discussion that takes both of your desires and preferences seriously instead of assuming in advance what he will or will not be open to. The fact that his first wife cheated and he left her may not matter now. It might matter to him, but it also might not. That might be ancient history. It might not even be relevant to his thinking today. Consider that the future and the present are your concerns more so than the past. Okay, the next question is one that I have edited down a bit. Here is the streamlined version. I have gotten a divorce and chosen to be in a committed relationship with my affair partner. Now that the rose-colored glasses have come off, we can see each other's warts and flaws. As adults in our 50s, there are many more variables to contend with that did not seem as difficult when the rose-colored glasses were worn with every brief interaction. Now that we can spend 2 to 3 days a week together, we see that we are very different people from very different cultures, professional versus blue collar. My new partner meets the needs for intimacy that I have longed for, but comes with some baggage that is challenging. Blue-collar job, rough around edges, a bit of old debt, limited relationships with children. I have no debt, am quite mild-mannered, and close with my adult children. This matters because I don't feel 100% safe in the relationship and start nitpicking at his perceived flaws. He treats me really well, and our connection 18 months in is very strong. So my question is, how can I reframe this relationship to be one that I am proud of? How do I get the fuck over this shit so that I can live happily ever after? Amen. Great questions. There is so much I could say in response to even this simplified version of this person's query, but I'm going to focus on the following. The question asker writes that their partner comes with some baggage that is challenging, namely having a blue-collar job, being rough around the edges, having a bit of old debt, and limited relationships with children. Here's the question we all get to ask ourselves. Why does the stuff we think counts as quote-unquote baggage count as baggage? Why does having a blue-collar job count as baggage? What the hell is baggage anyway, right? Now, the point by asking why do we think having a blue-collar job counts as baggage isn't necessarily that we shouldn't be thinking that having a blue-collar job counts as baggage or as being some kind of a problem or some kind of an issue or some kind of a drawback. The point is to get really curious about why we think this way and what specifically we are thinking about any feature of our partner's existence. In this case, we're talking about the type of job they have. I am fully aware, I assure you, that in our society, we tend to make having a particular type of job mean a lot of things. We assign prestige and value to certain jobs, and we don't assign prestige and value to other jobs. We think that having a particular type of job can either make us a more valuable human who is more worthy of esteem or a less valuable human who is less worthy of esteem. This kind of thinking is woven into the fabric of our collective understanding of how life is. So I'm not criticizing anyone for thinking this way. These are beliefs that we're all eligible to have come into contact with and to have potentially taken on as our own. That said, I do encourage you to take responsibility for examining what you think it means for your partner to have a particular type of job. So in this case, what does it mean about your partner if they have a blue-collar job? And perhaps even more importantly, what do you think it means about you if you have a partner who has a blue-collar job? It's also worth remembering that the very idea that there are blue-collar jobs and white-collar jobs is a social construction. Our understandings of what counts as a blue-collar job and what counts as a white-collar job are also social constructions. And that's not to say that these constructions don't matter. They do matter. When we think things are real, they are real in their consequences, but they don't have to continue to matter to us in the same ways that they have. Even if society in general, or lots of people out there, think about blue-collar jobs versus white-collar jobs in a particular way, even if there are ideas about different types of jobs and the people who do them floating around out there in the cultural fog, you get to decide on purpose whether you want to agree with these ideas or not. You may have come to your current ways of thinking very unintentionally, but you have the power to consciously decide if you want to keep thinking in the way that you have been or not. After all, your partner's job or any other feature of who your partner is a neutral circumstance. Having a blue-collar job or a job that is considered blue-collar or having a certain amount of debt or any other feature of a person isn't inherently meaningful. It's up to you to decide what you're going to make any of these things mean. Now, it's fair enough not to like certain features of a person. It's always your prerogative to have likes and dislikes and to make decisions based on your likes and dislikes. But you might find that adhering to some of your dislikes doesn't get you more of what you want overall. So if you really don't like it that your partner has a blue-collar job, you could always choose to leave the relationship. That's totally fair. But if you want to be with them, and the asker of this question sounds like they want to be with their partner, it might serve you to better investigate your thinking about what it means to have a blue-collar job and to potentially adjust your thinking about that feature of your partner, because doing that will enable you to have a different, i.e. better, experience of your relationship with your partner overall. Being willing to examine and adjust our own thinking is how we get the fuck over our own self-imposed baggage and live happily ever after. Moving on, here is the condensed version of a question about how to deal with friends' responses to infidelity. Unfortunately, there has been some friendship fallout, people not supportive of our relationship. I get it, but I guess I was hoping for more understanding because we are such a close group of friends, and I know they can see the amount of pure love we share. There's two people in particular that have expressed that they can't be around us, and one even yelled at him that he needs to go back to his wife. I guess I'm just wanting to know how we should handle these people that we once viewed as friends. I know that once we go full legit, there will probably be more backlash too. I know I can control it, but it still hurts to feel judged. I'm going to begin to answer this question with a question. And that question is this. Have you seen the movie Chef, which came out in 2014 and was directed by and starred Jon Favreau? It's an enjoyable movie. You might want to watch it if you haven't seen it. And the point for today's purposes is this. In the movie, Jon Favreau plays a chef. And at one point, a critic reviews his restaurant very unfavorably. And in a sense, this is a totally fair thing for the critic to do. The critic, after all, has a job of reviewing restaurants and is allowed to find fault in the restaurants he reviews and is allowed and even tasked with writing about the restaurants he reviews, including the faults he may see in these restaurants. And by deciding to be a chef and to put your work out there into the world for public consumption, You basically sign up for the opportunity to be reviewed by critics who have the right to critique you. And moreover, you have to be a chef at a restaurant that's notable enough to be reviewed for a critic to even bother reviewing you. So, in other words, being eligible to be publicly criticized by a restaurant critic is an indicator of success for chefs. But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt when your hard work that you've poured your heart and soul into is publicly critiqued or mocked or worse, right? And if you've seen the movie Chef, you know that there is a scene in which Jon Favreau's chef character responds to the restaurant critic in very dramatic fashion and tells him, "It fucking hurts. It fucking hurts when you critic people write this stuff about me." Even if being a chef that's successful enough to be reviewed in a major news outlet is a win, having your hard work criticized may not feel good at all. Even if the possibility of that happening is only avoidable if you don't put yourself out there in the first place. Even if getting reviewed unfavorably by a critic is just part of the game or an inevitable and even enviable part of your job. Even if you know all of this, it can still really fucking hurt to have your hard work, heartfelt work criticized. And the scene in the movie Chef illustrates this quite well. You might want to go and watch it. And so it is with friends. It's such an immense pleasure and privilege to have good friends. It's such an incredibly wonderful thing to have a close group of friends. And it's lovely when our friends support us and approve of us and wish us well and all of that good stuff. But when we sign up for friendship, when we sign up for any kind of relationship with other humans, we're not just signing up for the good stuff. We're not just signing up for the sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and cupcakes and happy stuff. We're signing up for the aspects of human connection that may not be all that kind of thing. For better or worse, humans can be pretty great to be around sometimes and also pretty not great to be around sometimes. Sometimes people do things we really like, and sometimes they don't. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to put up with all the things we don't like, but it also doesn't mean that we can prevent all the things we don't like from ever happening. If we're willing to get close enough to people to receive their support and approval and good wishes, by definition, we are also close enough to them to receive judgment and criticism and disapproval and the like from them. For better or worse, humans, even our friends, are capable of dishing out judgment and criticism and disapproval. And we may not like being on the receiving end of that kind of stuff at all, and that's fair enough. It's totally human to like it when other people support and approve of us, and totally human to not like it when other people disapprove of us and do not support us. That is fair. But let's look at the last line of this listener's question, which was, "I know I can control it, but it still hurts to be judged." I'm imagining that what this person might have meant is that they can control the hurt they feel when they think they're being judged. And if I'm right about that, I want to suggest an alternative. Instead of trying to control the hurt you feel, why not allow the hurt you feel? We gain so much from allowing ourselves to feel our emotions when they arise instead of trying to control our feelings or prevent them from happening in the first place. If you're feeling hurt, you're feeling hurt. Trying to control that may not be possible. Yes, you may be able to manage the extent to which you continue to feel hurt. You don't have to keep on feeling hurt forever, but that's another story. And more importantly, for the present purposes, if the feelings are there, if the hurt is there, I encourage you to allow yourself to feel the hurt, to feel the feelings instead of trying to control them or deny them. When you give yourself the opportunity to feel your feelings instead of trying to control them, they will eventually run their course. There are caveats to that, but in brief, what I want you to consider is that if you're willing to feel a feeling and really feel it instead of trying to control it or get rid of it or avoid it, then you will be able to make your way through it, or it will be able to make its way through you. And then, once you're on the other side of the feeling, once you're feeling less intensely hurt, then you can decide how you want to deal with your friends. There are any number of courses of action that might make sense for you to take with your friends. There are any number of things that you might want to say to them or do with them, or, not do or not say to them or with them. But it's hard to make those kinds of decisions when we're in the thick of feeling hurt. As they say, when emotion is high, intelligence is low. So I encourage you to let yourself feel your hurt. And then once you've made it through the intensity of your hurt feelings, then you can think a little more clearly and calmly about how you want to proceed with these friendships. Now, I fully understand that we tend to want to take action to relieve ourselves of uncomfortable feelings. We want to figure out how to deal with the friends instead of figuring out how to deal with our hurt. But taking action to relieve ourselves of discomfort doesn't work too well on the whole. Instead, though, we can digest our uncomfortable feelings and then decide what action we want to take in relation to the situation at hand. Okay, here's the last question I'm going to answer today. I have listened a lot about how our feelings are our own and that other people don't cause these, but maybe the occasion for our feelings, which I understand. I sometimes find it hard then to discern behavior that is unacceptable to me in the moment, because often I am reacting with emotion versus behavior that is unacceptable full stop. I think you would say it's for us to decide, but I have trouble with overturning and second guessing myself about how I feel after reflection. Okay. If I were speaking with this question asker, I would have a few clarifying questions to ask before I attempted to respond to their question, but that's not what's happening right now. So I'm going to respond to this question as best as I can because I think I understand what they're getting at. And I think what I have to say here will be helpful to someone, even if I'm misinterpreting this question to some extent. So here goes. When something happens, when anything happens, we have the capacity, that's putting it generously, to think thoughts about that occurrence very quickly. And we usually do exactly that. Our meaning-making machines, also known as our brains or our minds, are likely to assign meaning to occurrences before we even know what has happened. And occurrences that we experience can, of course, include other people's behavior. And then whatever thoughts we have about occurrences that we experience, whatever meanings we make out of our experiences, will very quickly create emotions for us. And this can happen in seconds, or probably more accurately, even fractions of a second. Something happens. I have a thought about it almost instantly. And that thought almost instantly generates a feeling. And before I know it, I am awash in a really intense emotion. This happens all the time, and that's not a problem per se. Our capacity to assess and react to situations quickly helps us in some circumstances and has definitely served an evolutionary function for human existence. But sometimes our first assessments of a situation aren't ones that we want to stick with forever. Somebody else's behavior might seem really problematic to us upon our first thought, or might seem totally okay to us upon our first thought. And then upon further consideration, we decide that actually what we initially thought was really bad isn't that big of a deal, or what we initially thought we were okay with isn't actually something that we want to be okay with. So, how do we use our capacity to examine our responses to things after the moment has passed to our advantage, rather than to use this capacity as a way or an opportunity to second guess ourselves or to second guess our initial dislike of someone else's behavior? Here are a few suggestions. First of all, recognize that you have the right to dislike other people's behavior or the right to not want to tolerate certain behaviors from others. Sometimes we question whether or not someone's behavior is unacceptable to us because we don't fundamentally believe that we are allowed to decide that someone else's behavior is unacceptable to us. Sometimes our initial response to something happening is, wow, I really didn't like that. And then later we question ourselves because we don't think it's fully okay for us to say, yeah, that is not okay with me. That is not something that I'm cool with. So consider that you have full permission to dislike anything that you want to dislike. And consider that you don't have to stick with your initial assessment of someone else's behavior forever. You are allowed to think about it and change your mind. That said, sometimes it can be hard to figure out what we want to keep on disliking and what we might be willing to adjust our thinking about or want to adjust our thinking about. There can be really good reasons to question our dislike of things. Sometimes easing up on our dislike of certain things or certain behaviors or certain people enables us to experience more of what we want to in life overall. So here's the second thing I want you to do. When something happens and you're not sure if it's unacceptable to you full stop or not, I want you to get clear on what exactly happened that you thought was unacceptable. Assuming we're talking about someone else's behavior, what did the person do that you didn't like? Get as specific as you can about what they actually did. What are the facts of their behavior? Not your assessment of their behavior, but the facts of whatever they did or said or didn't do or didn't say. Once you are clear about the facts of what they did, then ask yourself what you think about what they did. Or more specifically, you can ask yourself why you don't like this other person's behavior. Why do you think it is or was unacceptable behavior? Now you get to decide if your assessment of their behavior serves you well or not. What is the outcome for you of thinking this behavior is unacceptable? Sometimes thinking that certain behaviors are unacceptable helps us set clear boundaries, and that can help us create relationships that we feel great about. But sometimes thinking and continuing to think that certain behavior is unacceptable feels terrible for us and gets in the way of us having the experiences in life that we really want to have. You get to decide if you think that assessing someone else's behavior as unacceptable helps you get more of what you really want to experience in life or not. Having a robust sense of what is okay with us and not okay with us can help us steer clear of behaviors that we know we don't want anything to do with. And that can make for a more enjoyable existence for so many reasons. But having too many ideas about what behaviors are unacceptable may cut us off from people and situations and connections with other humans and other kinds of experiences in a way that we ultimately don't like very much. So yes, the answer to this question does boil down to you get to decide, but hopefully my response here helps give you a framework with which to decide. Does assessing this behavior as unacceptable serve my greater interests and greater priorities and deeper desires or not? Does thinking of this behavior as unacceptable help me live more of the life I want to live or not? To answer those questions, you've got to trust that it's okay for you to have likes and dislikes. It's okay for you to have preferences. It's okay for you to deem some things acceptable and other things unacceptable. And if you aren't there yet, if you don't believe that yet, building your belief that you are indeed allowed to have likes and dislikes and deem certain things unacceptable to you, that's your work right now. All right, everyone, that is it for today. If you would like to delve into the questions you have about your infidelity situation and how to handle it, let's work together. Having me as your coach is totally different from listening to me talk on the podcast. When we work together, I teach you tools and concepts that I cannot teach you through the podcast alone. And more importantly, I help you apply these tools and concepts to the specifics of your own life. And with these tools and my guidance, you gain the ability to handle your situation in an entirely different way. And then you can get clear on what you want and go after it and deal with whatever challenges that may come up as you do so, instead of ruminating and staying stuck or kicking the can down the road indefinitely. So when you are ready to get to work and begin the process of resolving your infidelity situation in a way that's truly right for you, you can schedule an introductory coaching session with me through my website, mariemurphyphd.com. You can also learn more about the packages I currently offer clients after that initial session, as well as my current pricing through the services page of my website. I offer confidential, compassionate coaching via Zoom, which means we can work together no matter where you're located. I can't wait to meet you. Have an amazing week, everyone. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me with Dr. Marie Murphy. Make sure to click subscribe to get updates on our latest episodes.